God, I thank you for breaking chains. Ooh. God, I thank you for seeing what I was anchored to, even when I didn't see it myself. God, I didn't know that it had affected me that deeply. I didn't know that I'd really started feeling that I didn't have any value. I didn't realize that I was anchored to something. But sometimes God sends a word so that you can see that what you are anchored to has enough power to keep you from moving in the direction of your purpose. And when you truly believe that you being anchored in Jesus makes the difference, you get hungry to get yoked up. Paul and Silas understood something about being anchored and how being anchored can change your condition. Paul and Silas are sitting in a cell, chained up in somebody else's anchors. Oh, God. Whew. But they understood that somebody else's anchors don't change what I'm anchored in. So they're sitting in the prison cell and they start doing the only thing they can do, because they can't really move this thing on their own. They can't really break this chain on their own, but they use the weapon that is available to them, because sometimes you can't just flip a switch and make things change. But what you can do is change the condition. You can change your position in the condition when you decide to worship in the face of what is oppressing you. Now I was underneath it, but when I worship, I get on top of it. And Paul and Silas start singing, and Paul and Silas start worshiping, and all of a sudden chains start breaking. I didn't have to manipulate to do it. I didn't have to sleep with anybody to do it. I didn't have to pretend to be someone I wasn't. I just had to step into the fullness of who I am. Your authentic worship will break the chains of what's trying to keep you bound. My worship changes where I am positioned in the conditions. Can't change the condition, but I can change where I'm positioned. I don't have to let this thing whoop me. I don't have to let this thing challenge my worth and my value. I can change my position. And if I align my position with what God sees, then I don't even have to worry about how the condition is going to change. I just have to stay aligned with what God knows about me and what I know about him. That's why the enemy will always go after what you know. Because if you start questioning what you know, then you cannot align and be established in what will bring you breakthrough. At minimum, you got to have the hope of Jesus as an anchor for your soul. That no matter what my condition is, I have a hope that is greater than this condition. And that hope always shows up for me. And that hope always guides me and leads me. When we hear the scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, it comes after Paul talking about he could be up and he could be down, he could be rich and he can be poor, but he said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's his anchor. In nautical vessels, it is not uncommon for a ship to have more than one anchor. Because different anchors serve different purposes depending on the conditions. I asked them to put an illustration on the board because I just want to show you how different anchors work for different conditions. These are just a few, but there are literally countless different types of anchors. The fluke style anchor is similar to the plow anchor, but it's more lightweight. It's good for most boats, and it gets its holding power from its pointed flukes. There's a plow anchor that is most effective in grass, mud, and sand. There's a claw anchor, and the claw anchor works well because it resets quickly. Depending on the condition of where you are headed, you will need a different type of anchor. Oh, God. It is not uncommon for a vessel to have multiple anchors based on where they're headed. So yes, I do have to have the hope of Jesus as an anchor for my soul. But I also recognize that as I move in the direction of my purpose, that God sometimes sends me a specific anchor for a specific condition, because God recognizes that in this season, you're going to need a different type of anchor. You have a different type of anchor when you're at the job than when you're at home messing with the kids. I need a different type of anchor for this condition. I have a different type of anchor when I'm standing up here versus when I'm listening to my children. When I'm here, my anchor is speaking. When I'm with my children, my anchor is listening. Different circumstances require a different type of anchor. Bishop Jakes is just as much Bishop Jakes as he is Chairman Jakes, as much as he is the entrepreneur. And in those settings, but depending on the condition of the room, he needs a different type of anchor. This is why I have a book that's coming out April 30th. It's called Power Moves. Ignite your confidence and become a force. I wrote this book because I recognized that we were a culture becoming obsessed with one expression of power. As long as I show up looking strong and like I have it all together, then I'm powerful. But I wrote Power Moves so that we understand that power often moves. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not be the strong friend at all. Sometimes it's being quiet and letting someone else find the strength that God put inside of them. Tell somebody Power Moves. I wrote Power Moves so that you understand that the same power that got you through that last season could find you in this season if you stop looking for it to show up in the same way that you've always known it. The question has to be, God, what is the power that is giving me this day, my daily bread? God, I don't want to be eating off of stale bread because power moves, and I want to move the way that power moves. I don't want to lust for the way that power used to be when God says, I'm calling you to a new source of power. If you don't move when power moves, you'll be like the Sadducees and the Pharisees working off of old power and asking God, how do I accomplish what you've called me to do in the earth? You can only do it if you move with my power. Because when you understand this fundamentally, you recognize that different conditions require different anchors. When we find our 70 disciples in this text, our 70 disciples are transitioning from having Jesus in his physical form as their anchor into his word being what anchors them. Oh, this is quite a transition, because for almost 3 years, he has been their anchor in physical presence. But as Jesus heads towards Jerusalem, he understands that if you are only used to me showing up in this particular form, you will miss that I have different expressions. And so he begins training them to be broad enough and vast enough to understand that my word may be the only anchor that you have in this season. In other words, even when you don't see me, it doesn't mean I'm not working. That word may be the only, see, this is a good word for someone who understands that I have been sent into hazardous conditions. And I am not as comfortable as I once was. But the only thing that I have to keep me grounded in these hazardous conditions are the fact that I got a word from God. It's not that it's not dangerous. It's not that I feel like I am the woman for the job. It's not that I feel like I am the best man on the field. It's just that I got a word from God. And sometimes a word from God will send you into hazardous conditions, because God knows that if you stay anchored to the word, it doesn't matter who comes or who goes. All that matters is that you stay anchored and why I sent you. If you stay anchored and why I sent you, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. It doesn't matter what your haters say. It doesn't matter who is more educated. All that matters is that you stay anchored. Hit your neighbor and say, stay anchored. Don't you give up, stay anchored. Don't you turn back, stay anchored. Sometimes you need a reminder that I didn't get here by myself, that I came here from a word from God. And if a word from God sent me, a word from God is going to lead me. And I won't move until you send another word. And I won't go back until you send another word. Anchored. Anchored by this word. The word is all I got. The word is all I need. The word is all I got. The word is all I need. God, you told me if I come to this city that you'll go ahead of me and make my crooked path straight. So I'm packing up and I'm moving to the city. I don't have any friends. I don't know what the job is going to be, but I'm anchored in the word that you gave me. I don't know how I'm going to raise this child, but I'm anchored in the word that you gave me. I don't know how I'm going to build this ministry, but I'm anchored in the words you gave me. I'm anchored in this. I'm anchored in this. And of course the conditions have been violent, because the conditions are not coming for my finances. It's not coming for my marriage. The condition is coming for my anchor, because you understand, if I get off my square, that you can take territory. But I hear God saying, I gave you that territory. Don't you give it up. I gave you that territory. I gave you that vision. I gave you that child. You better stay anchored. 10 toes down. 10 toes down. Stand on business. I'm standing on the anchor. Stand on business. I'm standing on what God gave me. I'm going to see this thing. I'm going to see it to the end. I'm going to see it to the end. The wind and waves are coming, but I'm going to see it to the end. The lies are coming, but I'm going to see it to the end. All hell is breaking loose, but I'm going to see it to the end. Anchored. Anchored. Get your weight up. You're going to have to be anchored for this. Go talk to your therapist. You're going to have to be anchored for this. Go take a nap. You're going to have to be anchored for this. I don't know who you are, but God is calling you into a dimension that is going to require you be anchored, because they're going to pull at you and they're going to talk about you and they're going to try and hijack your anchor. Oh, I don't know who you are, but I hear God saying you're going to have to take your anchor back. You got to take your anchor back. The threat is over your anchor. The discouragement is over your anchor. Somebody in this room, you've been dealing with grief. And you've been hurting because you lost your anchor. And you feel lost at sea because you don't have your anchor anymore. And that anchor came in the form of a person. Maybe it came in the form of a marriage, but you've been grieving that you're not anchored to who you once were. And I hear God saying that you were one ship with many anchors. And that person you were counting on to be your anchor, they may not be here with you in the way that you're used to them being here with you. But God said, I would never leave you without an anchor. Maybe the marriage has come to an end and your identity was wrapped up in who you were married to or where you were working, and now that season is over. And I hear God saying, I will never leave you without an anchor. You are one vessel with many anchors. If you would just trust me with this next phase of your life, you will understand you're going to feel rooted again. That's the sound of somebody getting back to their anchor. Getting their mind together. Because I haven't been anchored. Jesus sends these 70 disciples out in hazardous conditions. If you read all of Luke 10, you'll see that he tells them, I'm sending you out as lambs amongst wolves. Man, we get so upset with God when he exposes us to hazardous conditions. And there is quite literally nothing in Scripture that suggests that walking with God means that you avoid hazardous conditions.